To mention a hadith of Abi al-Harith Waqid ibn Auf radiyallahu anhu, as in Bukhari and Muslim في الحديث المتفق عليه. It's very serious. As you can see in the halaqah, we'll have brothers and sisters who would join, but sometimes before the halaqah you find a lot of people would leave. If they have something to do, alhamdulillah. But if you're just going to go stand outside, talking on your phone, that's not a good sign. Al-Harith Waqid ibn Auf said, radiyallahu anhu, while we were sitting with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I want you to pay close attention, this will benefit you for the rest of your life. Wherever you are and find a halaqah, make sure you join for this reason. We're sitting with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and three people entered the masjid. Two of them came towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and one of them continued going. One of the two وجد فرجة في الحلقة فدخل فيها. One of them found a gap in the halaqah. He sat in that gap, that spot. Another one sat behind because he couldn't find a place. Third one continued going until he exited the masjid. When he finished, alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, shall I tell you about the three men who entered the masjid? So two of them are listening. One of them left. But only Allah knows what's going on. Then he told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Remember this hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. قال أما أحدهم أقبل على الله فأقبل الله عليه وأما الثاني استحيا فاستحيا الله منه وأما الثالث أعرض فأعرض الله عنه. See, about the two, one of them found a gap and came forth to Allah, and Allah fully accepted him. Second one could not find a room and sit behind them, show haya. Allah showed them haya back. And the other one just give it up, and Allah gave him up. Turns his back to Allah, and Allah turned away from him. This is very serious. The other hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, hadith Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan radiyallahu anhu, قال صلى الله عليه وسلم ما يريد الله به خيرا يفقهه في الدين. كما قال العلماء إذا رأيت الرجل يعرض عن طلب هذا العلم وتعلمه فاعلم أن الله لم يرد به خيرا. Hadith Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu in Bukhari and Muslim, Rasulullah said, if Allah wants to do good to a person, He makes him learn this deen. Learn and comprehend the deen. Ulama, subhanallah, said, if you see a person don't want to learn and going away from learning the deen, that's a sign that Allah does not want to do good to that person. Very serious matter. A person will be, wallah, it's very funny, yani. I was showing my wife and sharing with her. Go to YouTube, just put omelette. Omelette. You're going to find a lot of videos. There is no video that's not been watched by 1 million. One video was watched by 37 million. How to make an omelette. You find a great scholar, those who passed away a long time ago, giving a very, very important class about Aqidah. You find 86 views. It shows you where the Ummah is going. We want to learn anything and everything but the deen. And sometimes I don't blame some brothers and sisters. When they wanted to learn, and the one who's supposed to teach them, is the wrong person. A lot of brothers like myself take this spot and talk about nonsense. They are becoming entertainers. They will talk for an hour, you will not hear one ayah. You will not hear one hadith. And this is supposed to be a religious class or lecture. That's what some people, and some of them, they even talk nonsense. Runs the people away, said no. And truly it doesn't make sense. Making it sound like part of the deen, or stories about this person, that person happened to him, that happened to that. And subhanAllah, I'm just trying to pair this to allow me to control this nonsense. What we talked about last time is very important. Wallahi, what I share with you brothers and my sisters, this is what you get when you learn, when you go for your PhD. I'm not giving you basics. I do my best to make it very simple and easy to understand. If you understand it yourself, you can make it easy. If you don't understand it yourself, that's what makes it difficult. You can search, alhamdulillah, Usman, Jazallah khair, you will have these videos, search this material and search this content and see. We want the level to come to this level. Why? Because so many Dajjal in the internet teaching anything and everything. All they care about how many hits they have, how many followers they have. What they're teaching you, as we mentioned, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those who are inviting people to hellfire, and we'll talk about these kind of people. We mentioned in one of the halaqat, but that's how serious it is. So tonight, inshallah, last halaqah was very important. Those are keys. Solve all your confusions. You'll never be confused. Use those keys, and you can filter what you're listening to, and you can tell who is worthy of your time or not. You have those keys. Start with me. Use them against me first. Train, practice. I'm a target. You can practice on this target. Tonight is very important. And see how much confusion would just go away from your head. How many ahkam rulings do you think we have in Sharia? عدد الأحكام الشرعية 5. See, all the confusion will go off your head. Just 5 rulings, how can you be confused? And we will expand it in the second part of this. We will explain what is causing confusion. What are these 5 ahkam? Before I go, the brothers, they called the last halaqah, they called it 2263. Now we're going to add 5. 22,635. To remember what we talked about. 35. 5 are 5 rulings in Sharia, the whole Sharia. It's not 4, it's not 7, it's not 1 million. It's 5. Number 1, 5. Number 1, haram. Number 2, makruh. These go one above the other. Haram, below it, it'll be easy for you to memorize. Number 3, mandatory. Below it is mustahab or masnoon. Mandatory, highly recommended. We call it it's sunnah, mustahab. Number 5 is by itself, is called mubah, permissible. So number 1, haram. Number 2, makruh. Number 3, mandatory. Number 4, mustahab. Number 5, mubah. So you put these 2 together, these 2 go together, and the one is by itself is mubah, permissible. Very clear? And there is a science that we're studying, and it's called usul al-fiqh, fundamentals of fiqh. And you will study these with full details and how to deduce the rulings from the text. You have verses in Quran and you have hadith of Rasulullah. Don't think, one of the ways, for example, for haram, if Allah said it is haram for you, we understand. It's not halal for you, you understand. That's it? No, ulama bring you other verses they will tell you, this is the evidence. You're like, wow, it doesn't say haram or not permissible. How did you extract the ruling of haram from this text? That is usul al-fiqh. For example, something that incur a punishment from Allah, the ghadab of Allah. We'll talk about them separate, inshallah Rabbil Alamin. But for you today to just understand, there are 5 rulings. One more time. 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, Mubah. Just remember this. This is Mubah. Khalas. Now, what would happen between the Ahkam? 5. What happened between Ahkam? One hukum will be taking place and it gets abrogated. What that means? It will be lifted and replaced with another hukum from the 5. It's always going to be 5. What we call it a naskh, abrogation. So this will be nasikh and this will be mansukh. رفع الحكم بحكم آخر متراخٍ عنه بعده يعني. There is a ruling, it will be, let's say, cancelled, no longer valid, and abrogated by a new ruling that will be the new ruling. This is what's happening, applicable right now. And this we call it abrogation. But the ruling that abrogates the other ruling is one of the 5. And the one that gets abrogated is one of the 5. So you're not going to go outside of the circle of the 5. Clear? For example, if a ruling was haram, something was haram, and got abrogated and becomes mustahab, are you still within the 5? See, no confusion. Give us an example, ya Shaykh. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, كنت نهيتكم عن زيارة القبور ألا فزوروها إنها تذكركم الآخرة. I have forbidden you from visiting the graves. So until this minute, they only know what is the ruling of visiting the grave. In time of Sahaba, haram. Now he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, now go and visit it. It will remind you of the Akhirah. So what is the ruling now? Mustahab. Mustahab. See how it changed? But it went from haram, ended up with mustahab, but there is no new ruling, right? It's just one of the 5. It is a new as far as what's going to be followed right now, but we stay within 5. Imagine, show you the perfectness of the deen. There is no confusion. It will be always you end up with what? How many hukum you will end up? No, there are 5 rulings, but how many you will end up as far as the practice goes? 1 and only 1. Remember what I said. 1 and only 1. You will understand that even more. Sometimes there is something mandatory and it becomes permissible, or mandatory becomes what? Recommended. And the abrogation, what is abrogating the first ruling has to be authentic, of course. If it's not, then the ruling remains as such. No change. Now we're going to get to the second part of it, which is, how many of you heard there are different opinions on this matter? All of you. There are many, there is different opinions. Especially from somebody like myself, when I sit here and I tell you, oh brother, there are different opinions. You know what that means? That's an escape exit for me, because I don't know. And don't say, Allahu A'lam, and fear Allah. Oh, there are different opinions. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to give me a matter in Islam, any matter in the entire Islam, that have 3 rulings from the 5 rulings. Yeah, I'll pause for a second and let you think about it. Sisters, inshallah, a matter from ibadah for anything. You remember the 5 rulings? 1 matter, and it has all 3 rulings out of the 5. Salat is haram, is makruh, okay. Is fardh, is mustahab, is mubah. Impossible. It's impossible. Is it mandatory, or is it mubah, or is it mustahab? You remember, as far as your practice, how many rulings you will have? One. From the beginning, you should stop me, say, Sheikh, you told us, in practice, you will have one ruling. I already asked you for 3. All of you owe me $3 each, because you failed miserably. Every practice will have how many rulings? 1. Remember that. Okay. Is it possible for any matter in Islam to have 3 rulings at the same time? Can you think of a matter that is haram, mustahab, mandatory? Doesn't exist. 2 rulings. Can something be mandatory and mustahab? Does it make sense? Can something be haram and mustahab? So how many rulings every matter will have? Remember that. So I'm giving you the examples to make you really stretch your thinking and bring in all these confusing matters. So when I tell you, brothers, there is different opinions. Brother, what do you mean by different opinions? That means it is haram, it is makruh, it is mandatory, it is mustahab, and it is mubah. Is that what you mean? No. Then what do you mean by different opinions? When this is used, consumed, not used. Oh, brother, but there is different opinions. Okay, give me different opinions. You see, now we're dissolving this different opinion business. It doesn't exist in Islam. What do you mean different opinions? There's one Quran, one Sunnah. One hukum will go with every single matter. Right? What would happen sometimes, what would happen? Let's go back to that example. Now, before Rasulullah make it permissible to visit the graves, before that, what was the ruling? Haram. So, you heard Rasulullah saying it's haram, but you did not hear him saying permissible. You've heard it both. You heard when he says haram, and you heard what he said permissible. What would his fatwa say? Your fatwa. If I come to you, what do you say? How many rulings you have? 1. How many rulings you have? What's your ruling? Permissible. Because you heard it's permissible. So, different opinions. He's saying haram, and he's saying mubah. Clear? Follow with me step by step. He's saying haram, and he's saying, wake up, ya Sheikh. Okay, mubah. Does it not sound like 2 opinions? It is 2 opinions. No. No. Hold on, ya Sheikh. I get a speeding ticket. He didn't hear nothing. He heard haram. His fatwa is 100% correct based on what he has. Your fatwa is 100% correct based on what you know. He doesn't know about it was abrogated. He didn't get the hadith of the abrogation. Then what he's doing is right. And what you're doing 100% right. For me, when I hear his opinion and I hear your opinion, are these 2 different opinions or not? Yes, 100%. Haram and permissible. When we come to the reality, how many opinions we have?
I'm not clear here how many opinions you want. Can you give an example? Like, okay, this is the oil wall. Can you give an example? You give me time, but I'm not clear about this.
Now, we have to, every matter, any matter, give me one matter. Every matter has one hukum. That's why I ask you, do you know if any matter has 2 hukums?
You mentioned that there are 3 hukum, but like one of the property.
No, you didn't follow, brother.
Confused?
Yeah, very confused. Because I love you. Now, I ask you, can you give me a matter that has 3 rulings? And then we said it's impossible. Why? Why it's impossible? Take 3 rulings out of the 5. Here is a matter, okay? Give me 3 rulings out of the 5. Just mention 3. Haram, mandatory, mustahab. Can you find any matter in Islam that is haram, mandatory, mustahab? Don't think about it. It's impossible. How can it be haram and mandatory? How can it be haram and mustahab? How can it be mandatory and mustahab? It doesn't exist. Clear? It does not exist. It cannot be mandatory and mustahab. Mandatory is different. Mustahab is different. Mandatory, if you don't do it, you are a sinner. Mustahab, if you don't do it, you lose the ajr. There is nothing. You're not accountable. No sin. Haram, if you do it, what? You get a sin. You're a sinner. But if you don't do it, you are falling in makruh. There is no sin in you. The makruh. If you do the makruh, you're not sinning. But it's better to avoid it. It's clear? Mubah, you have the choice. You do it, you don't do it, it's the same. Drinking water.
So to take a food, yeah, in mention, yes. So for example, it's non-kosher. Some say it's haram, some say it's makruh.
Very good. We're going to come to that. Now, let's go back to the example I gave, then we'll come to yours. Now, he said visiting the grave is haram. And you said visiting the grave is? Not permissible. Mustahab. Permissible, the Sharia doesn't encourage you and doesn't discourage you. It just leaves it open up to you. But when you are encouraged, that's mustahab. Rasulullah said, go ahead and visit it, it will remind you of the akhirah. That's higher than permissible. We'll get into details. Tonight we just want to clear this matter so you'll understand different opinions. So don't we have 2 different opinions here? Clearly, 2 different opinions. One is saying haram, one is saying mustahab. Now, let's step back and look at the reality. How many we have? Is this hukum valid? Why? But now, when we hear this, now me and all of you, we've heard this. For example, when I came and I listened to him, it's haram. And I listened to him, and it is permissible. Then I realized what happened with his hukum, his hadith. What happened? What did it do to the first one? Abrogated, naskh. So I end up with what? See? Now yours abrogated this, so haram is no longer valid. The problem is he did not hear the abrogation. لم يسمع بالنسخ. It's not like it doesn't exist. He did not hear about it. That does not cancel it. But in reality, in Sharia, how many hukum we have for this matter? 1. So somebody said smoking is haram. And somebody said smoking is makruh. Right? Okay. We go to haram and we found 1 haram plus haram, which is wasting the money, destroying yourself, harming the believers. All of this, haram plus haram plus haram plus haram plus haram equal what? Haram. Then I'm going to ask you, brother, where did you get makruh from? Yes, 2 opinions, fine. Where did you get your makruh from? You don't have a proof? How many hukum we have? Which is, you're always going to end up with what? 1 hukum. Clear? Impossible to have 2 hukums. Impossible. For example, if it was mandatory, it becomes mustahab. The only reason you have 2, because one of the 2 scholars did not hear about the abrogation. لم يسمع بالنسخ. Clear? If there is abrogation, that means the first one is what? Is lifted, is no longer valid. So you had 2. This was going on. This one came later, abrogated it. What happened to the first one? You cannot have 2. First one is no longer valid. It's even haram to use the first one. So if somebody comes and say, brother, visiting the grave is haram, what do we tell them? No, brother. Fear Allah, it is permissible. Here is the dalil. Whatever you were following, it was abrogated. So you never have 2 hukum. Clear? You will never have two hukum. If you go into details and you go and dissect it, you'll end up with how many hukum? One. So we see different opinions. What that means? It means nonsense. Does it make sense to you? It makes nonsense. What do we count as a different opinion? He said mandatory. He said mustahab. He said haram. He said makruh. You said permissible, mubah. What do we call all of this? Different opinions, because it's different ahkam, right? That's why we call it different. Mandatory is not mustahab. Haram is not makruh. And none of them is mubah. Each one is separate. We only call it different opinion because each one of them carries what? Different hukum. Do you think that is possible? It's impossible. When there are two hukums, either one of them abrogated the other one, or either one of them is not authentic. So we eliminate it, you'll end up with what? How many? Now, how many answers, I will come to the question. How many answers you're supposed to get from the one who gives you the fatwa? One answer. One. If I'm sitting here and I tell you, well, brothers and sisters, there are different opinions, that's a good sign that the person who is talking is an ignorant jahil. You have no respect to Allah and His Messenger. He's looking for hellfire. There is one opinion. It's not an opinion, one hukum. Let me make it clear to all of you, brothers. I'm a doctor. All of you are patients. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm a doctor. Otherwise, all of you. I'm a doctor, right? And you come to me. I say, brother, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. No, just follow with me. I'm feeling like this, feeling like that, this one, pain, this. Then I tell you, brothers, please, can you come here? Allah yarda alaykum, Allah yahfadkum. Allah yazdikum kull khair. Is rahmah in our gathering. You know, one time Nabi Sallam was going with Sahaba and they found a place to camp, and فَتَفَرَّقُوا فِي الشِّعَابِ, they all scattered. And he came and he said, مَا أَرَى تَفَرُّقَكُمْ هَذَا إِلَّا مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ. You, this person scattered, this is from shaitan. Why don't you come closer? The Sahabi said, subhanAllah, we got so close to each other. If you take a piece of garment, you might cover all of us. So this is rahmah, alhamdulillah. Except for the elders who are sitting in the back. It's okay, the seniors, they have the عندكم laissez-passer. They have the pass. You can use the wall. What was I saying? I'm a doctor. So you come and tell me, we have this, I feel that. Now follow with me, and I tell you, maybe you have corona. Maybe it's your heart. Maybe it's your kidney. Maybe you're lying. Maybe it's
a bread.
the biryani was too spicy. Was way too hot. Do you look at me as a doctor if I tell you this? Why? Why am I not a doctor if I tell you this? Then I would make it worse. I tell you, maybe take Tylenol if it doesn't work. Maybe you drink Coke. Maybe don't take nothing. Maybe just sleep. Usually it happens on Tuesday. Wednesday will be okay. Maybe you're gonna die. Do you still consider me as a doctor? Some brothers will consider me as a doctor. Do you consider me as a doctor if I talk to you like this? Yes or no?
No.
No. Everybody will say no. Why? Because what is your job as a doctor? I'm going to run all the tests, and I'm going to do what? Eliminate this, eliminate this, I'm going to end up with what? With one thing. Maybe with two. Maybe with two. Why? I would say you have this and it causes some inflammation. It's like you don't have two. No, you have one, but it causes this inflammation or this infection or this. You're going to end up with two. Now, do you know I'm a doctor when I tell you you have this and it caused this? And I've run all the tests. Now, do I sound like a doctor? Then I tell you, take this medication. Take this one. It's an antibiotic, and takes this one for painkiller. Do I sound like a doctor? Because I've done my job. Because this is my job, to come to you with one answer. Now, when it comes to the deen, and I tell you, brother, different opinions. Like when I told you 5 different things, are you a doctor? No. So what you going to do with all 5 diseases that I mentioned to you? What are you going to do with them? Do you qualify to deal with them? So why am I giving you all the 5 different illnesses? Does it make sense? You are the doctor. Why are you telling me different diseases? I don't care. You deal with it. Then why I'm giving you to choose 5 different medication or craziness? That's why you telling me. I come to you. You tell me which medication to take. Same thing when you come to me and I say, brothers and sisters, there are different opinions. Do you still look at me as a sheikh or a scholar or a mufti? That's an X. Why are you telling me different opinions? That's not my job. It's your job. If you're qualified, you go and study this matter, dissect it. You're going to end up with what? One hukum, one answer. There is no two. There is one. Some of us will be talking next, inshallah, we'll be talking about the understanding of the madhabs. Some people will use the 4 madahibs for what? To tell you different what? Different opinions. Brother, there's different opinions. Back home we have the Hanafi. Another brother, no, back home we have the Maliki. Back home, brother, we follow Hanbali. Brother, you're not following even a train to Japan. You know? We have the Shafi'i. Now, so far, are we okay? It's clear. One hukum. There is 5. It moved from one to the other, from this to this. It will never go out of the 5. You will always have one hukum. There is no 2. It's either mandatory or mustahab. It cannot be mandatory, mustahab. It doesn't make sense. It's like saying something haram and halal at the same time. Mandatory and mustahab at the same time. It doesn't work. That's not how it is. So we're clear about that. So now, we're not going to go to the 4 madhab. We're going to repeat this, inshallah, next halaqah. But we will talk about it with more details. This is what I will conclude with about the 4 madahib, inshallah, Rabbil Alameen. So when we said, ya akhi, we have 4 madahibs, and they have different opinions. What do you think? Stay strong with what you learned. Do you believe there are 4 opinions in the 4 madahib? By the way, if you studied the madahib, we had to study all of them. We have to study them, see their rulings and how they extract their ahkam. Always remember what I'm telling you. Find me one matter between all the 4 madhabs. Each madhab has a different hukum for it. One madhab, let's say the Hanafi say mandatory, the Maliki say mustahab, the Shafi'i say haram, and the Hanbali say makruh. Does it make sense to begin with? Does it make sense to any of you? It doesn't make sense. It's impossible. So what happened when you study the madahib? When you study the madahib, you will find 2 opinions. How many madhabs we have? 4. You're going to find 2 opinions. Sometimes it's going to be 3 versus 1. 3 saying the same thing, 1 is different, right? One time, these are two situations. One time you're going to find 2 saying the same thing, and 2 are saying 2 different things. So how many we end up with? 2 all the time. 3 versus 1, how many opinions total? 2. 2 versus 2, how many opinions total? It's only 2. When you go down and dissect, you will find the ulama looked at both evidences and ended up with what? One. I'll give you one beautiful book, Nail al-Awtar of Imam al-Shawkani. He'll bring you 9 opinions. Look how many opinions he ended up with. Oh, Al-Mughni ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi. All these books. تلخيص الحبير للشافعي الذي ابن حجر نصب الراية للإمام الزيلعي. And you will see they show you all the opinions and they end up with what? One opinion. Either they will make what we call tarjih. They will strengthen one over the other by aliyat al-tarjih. There are means of making tarjih. For example, this one is abrogated. This one is weak evidence. This one is strong evidence. You're going to end up with what? With one. So now we're clear about 4 madahib, 4 opinions. It doesn't exist. It's either 3 and 1 or 2 and 2. In both cases, you end up with the 2. But the ulama, when they come after this, we call it al-fiqh al-muqaran, comparative fiqh. They compared all these fatwas and they ended up with what? Finding one. So when I sit here and tell you, brother, there are different opinions, I want you to say it loud and clear. What does that tell you? I'm about to start lying to you. No one who studied the ilm al-shara'i and have knowledge should tell you there are different opinions. Well, brother, there are different opinions. Okay. Tell me all the different opinions. I want to hear it. Well, this is different opinions. It becomes like it's a fatwa itself. What do you mean different opinions? This is disrespectful to the deen. Allah confusing us? Do you think this deen is confusing? But it's not. We cause this confusion, especially people on my seat. Brother, there are different opinions. Now you go home confused. From now on, don't be confused. If I tell you different opinions, just leave and say, forget about anything I said. The alim, the mufti, the sheikh is the one who give you one answer. That's a real sheikh and mufti. But if they throw you off, like the doctor will tell you have 5, 2, maybe, and give you 5 different medication, maybe this work, maybe. Okay, you want to go with that kind of doctor? It's the same people who tell you there are different opinions. So, are you still going to be confused? Yes or no? Between last Jum'ah and this Jum'ah, wallahi, you have no excuse if you are confused. One. Especially last Jum'ah, we gave those keys. This Jum'ah tells you about Ahkam. 5 of them. If there are 2, it has to end up with 1. Let's go over the 5. 1, 2, 3. Why? It's one side and this side. Camera is dividing both of you. 3, mandatory. 4, camera, Mubah. So you see how simple it is. That's our deen. Inna ad-deena yusr. Rasulullah said, this deen is all about easiness. Somebody like myself, I can't sit here. Wallahi, talk for 1 hour. All of you will leave not understanding anything. And you'll be like, wow. Man, I remember when I was young, that sheikh is so powerful. Why? We could not understand nothing. Wallahi, I'm the house in Allah. I'm the house of Allah. I am in the house of Allah. We used to brag and praise the one who makes it so difficult. He makes it difficult because he doesn't understand. If he understood what he was talking about, he'd make it easy. Now, what's difficult about this? When you go study Sharia, when you're first year, you have the 5 ahkam. When you get your bachelor, how many ahkam will be? 5. But when you get to the master, how many ahkam? 5. PhD. That's the top. How many ahkam? 5. How simple is that? You just go into the usul al-fiqh and you see more details and dissecting as you go and become more professional and qualified, which is good. You have to be qualified. Qualified to look into the fatwa. If you give me 3 opinions, I look into them. It's my job to end up by giving you one back. It's my job. You studied for so many years to qualify to do this. But for me to sit here and confuse you, that means I don't fear Allah. Before we go to the questions, this book right here, if you find it anywhere in the masjid, please remove it. One brother found it. You remember last Jum'ah where we talked about? Here is a perfect example. I'm just going to open it. You see the colors? So beautiful. I want to show it in the camera. Beautiful colors. I don't know if you can zoom. Beautiful colors. That means so much money is being spent on it. The quality of the paper is excellent, glassy and all of that. This is full of lies about Allah and full of lies about Rasulullah. Let me give you an example. I'm just going to open. The name of Allah, Al-Latif, most affectionate. Whoever read this name 133 times daily, Allah will grant abundance in His rizq. I need your rodents. What should get your head? What got you? Number one, but there is something that caught your head. From last Jum'ah we talked. You remember the 6? How many? Allahu Akbar. You see now you can detect. You remember the 6 matters? That anything that there is a reward or there is a punishment or a part of our ibadah, it has to meet the Sharia in these 6 matters. One of them is how many? How and how many? Now let me give you another one. It's filled with that. All the 90 names of Allah. Each one of them. Let's see this one. Al-Muqaddim. Anyone who says this ism abundantly, they don't set the time, at the time of war, battle or jihad, Allah will give him courage to make advances. And he will be safeguarded from the enemy, inshallah. And who says it at all time will become obedient and submissive to Allah. See, these are the people who have no fear from Allah. You cannot tell me you will get this or you get that except it's from Quran or Sunnah. So Allah will be this, Allah will give you that. Where did you get this from? So this is book filled with that. 90 names of Allah, each and every one, they put a lie about Allah. Unfortunately, there isn't the name of the company and the publisher and all of it here. So this is a good example for what talked about last. So from last Friday, if you look at this book, immediately you will say what? What do you call it? Garbage. Call it garbage, don't call it anything. Why? Because no respect to Allah and His Messenger, worse than garbage. What would you call a lie about Allah? Garbage is what's left from what we used. I want to see just najasa, the worst you can think of. And this is an example. Do you have any questions before we close the store? I did not mention anything.
Talking about that, says that the Muslim might come up with 2 opinions. 3 opinions are said. One multiply said 2. 2 always said right. I'm giving an example. About you don't touch the body from it, right? Working out, none the thought. If you go there, who can touch? Who cannot touch the Quran? So you see the mazhab, they have difference for being in the thoughts. You can see there are 4 different. I don't exactly remember this like 2 or 3 or 1. I don't remember right now. I remember that there is a big difference. If I come to you, you might give, okay, this is the right or not. These people cannot touch the Urdu or even a student. They're talking about even the system with the, whether they can touch it. So there's difference of opinion. My question, when I come to you, you are different about, used to knowledge, you are following one of the opinions. So you said this is wrong. But if I go to another scholar who is to understand it, and he's following maybe another person says, no, this is the right way. So at the end of the day, it is not 2 rulings. There is still difference of opinion there. So how can you conclude here that no, there is only 1 rule?
Why'd they come to you then?
But you still end up with one.
No, it's okay. My sister's upstairs. He's talking about touching the Quran in state of janaba or state of menses, sisters. There are different opinions. Somebody says touch, somebody says that. The brother said there are so many different opinions. I don't want to hear this from you anymore. That means we wasted this halaqah tonight. And we wasted last halaqah. How many opinions can be? As many as possible. How many hukum we should have? End of story. End of story. One. Never have more than hukum. Okay? So now, all these who are saying different opinions. You can have 50 different opinions. What that means? So many of them don't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then do I count that as an opinion? If we take the 50 and filter it to the ones who have the proof from Quran and Sunnah, then I will ask you, from the opinions you've read, give me the ones that talk from Quran and Sunnah. See how we filter it? Remember last Jum'ah? Who is the legislator? Then, okay. Then there is no opinion of a human being except Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's a legislator. So what are the two sources of legislation? Quran and Sunnah. And the proofs are the Quran, Sunnah, consensus, ijma' and qiyas. We'll talk about it. We'll add it to the count. Now, if I go back, like my brother, I guarantee you, if you've read it in a book, I will guarantee you, you go back and read the same book, you will change your opinion. Because you're going to find opinion with no Quran, no Sunnah. Why would you count it as an opinion? What would you call it? Just put it on the side. It's impossible to have, can you believe there is a verse in Quran says, okay, and verse says, not okay? That's impossible. Contradiction in Quran? Can you find Quran saying yes and Prophet ﷺ saying no? That's impossible. So you will filter all these opinions. You will end up with what? Maximum. Maximum. Always maximum will be 2. You remember the 4 madahibs? Always what? Maximum 2. And when we filter, we find what? We ended up with what? With 1. Same matter, brother, I guarantee you. And if you have that book, bring it, and I will read it in front of all of them and destroy all of that that's not built on nothing. Be strong. Different opinions should not scare you. Means, what do you mean by different opinions? Brother, I don't want the opinion, I want the hukum. What is your hukum? You tell me your hukum, right? The hukums can only come from where? You see how strong you are? Ask for hukum, don't ask for my opinion. Once I give you the hukum, if the hukum is not from Quran and Sunnah, what do you call it? You see what I'm saying? Now we are filtering. Don't be intimidated by somebody like me who have beard like this and put in front of a plaque, Ustad, Sheikh, Doctor, Mufti, Don't mean nothing. PhD in Sharia, so what? Give me the hukum. I'll guarantee you, if you have the hukum, impossible that you'll end up with more than 2. And with the 2, we look closer, we're going to find what? 1. Impossible. Remember, ask for the hukum. Remember, once you ask for, give me an example. If I tell you, give me a hukum. For example, this matter of touching the Quran. Just throw a hukum at me. Halal. He gave us a hukum. Right? Once he said halal, that means he gave us what? A hukum. We're going to go back to it. Where does it say it's halal? Show us the ayah. Allahu Akbar. From the Sunnah, show us an ayah. What if he says, well, I don't see nothing wrong with it. That's okay. You see? Do we consider this hukum? We have no hukum. Give us a hukum. Haram. Yes, ya Sheikh. I know, I ask for hukum, and I know what the hukum should come from, because there are only 2 legislators. Allah, then Rasulullah. See how easy it is? Don't be intimidated. And this is very different opinion. I need these books, Sheikh. I know them, and I've seen these fatwas, and I see these people on YouTube. And They'll intimidate you. There are different opinions of scholars, brother. Okay, I don't want to hear that. Tell me, you tell me. Not you. The one who's speaking. I don't want different opinions, meaning I have a lot of knowledge. I know all this. That's a good sign that I have no knowledge. When I tell you different opinions, that's a sign for you to know I have no knowledge. I'm just trying to escape. And don't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The best at this moment to say what? Allahu A'lam, let me check. And if I'm sitting here, that means I'm qualified, then I have to go back to all the ahkam and the opinions and dissect and do what I have learned. They give us the tools. You have to know that, brothers and sisters. They give us the tools to do this. They qualify you to do this. Don't think they just leave you like that. No. They qualify you to do this. And come back to the people with one ruling. If I'm sitting here just to confuse you, that's what I would do. So many opinions. Then when you tell them what is the opinion, they don't have no clue. You'll do it and you will see.
Can you actually tell them the actual methods or the ahkam for that situation?
Touching the Quran for the women that have touching or reading. There's two matters here. Touching. Okay. Number one, is there any ayah in Quran that shows touching is haram? لا يمسه إلا المطهر. We have an ayah. Cannot be touched except by the ones who are tahir. Do we have any hadith? Cannot touch the Quran.
لا يمس القرآن أو القرآن أدرسته ليس حديث
لا يصح. Yes, we will mention this hadith. It's a very weak hadith. فيما معنى وهو حديث ضعيف. It's a very weak hadith. There is no authentic hadith. So now what do we do? Now we come to the ayah. And we لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. In all tafsir, all the tafsirs, you will find the mutahharun have two meanings. Meaning number one, it means who? No, the mutahharun, the pure ones.
Angel.
The malaika, angel. And the other one means the believers. Mutahharun are not in state of janaba or menses or nifas for the women. So that means in a state of cleanliness, right? Okay. There is a rule in usul al-fiqh. Whenever there is a word or a verse that carries both meanings, it cannot be used as a proof. مقام الاحتمال سقط الاستدلال. If you say about it means this and it means this, both of them are valid, it's no longer to be used as evidence. And alhamdulillah, this is recorded, so there's a sheikh making up stuff. Had he recorded? You see how I start using the tools to work with the evidences. So what is the, yes? Oh, no, we'll finish with this. But you know what? This is a very strong question. We'll have a whole lecture about it, about touching the Quran, about reading the Quran. And briefly, I just want to answer him. And about read, this is about touching, about reading. About reading, al-Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu anha wardaha, when he was with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Hajj, her menses took place. Then she asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what I do? Listen to the fiqh. You go deep, dive in the meaning. Ya Rasulullah, what do I do? قال اصنعي كل ما يصنع الحاج إلا الطواف. Do everything that the person coming for Hajj does except tawaf. The one on Hajj, look, he made the exception. Tawaf. Or unless we're going to say he forgot. Astaghfirullah. He accepted what? The only thing she cannot do is what? Right? Clear? Can she read the Quran? This is your proof. The only thing is haram is what? Tawaf. The Hajj, they read Quran, male and female. But he told her, do everything the Hajj do except Tawaf. And among the things that Hajj do, reading Quran. See, that's the proof for reading. then give me a proof that rival this proof, so she is haram for her to read. There is one hadith, لا أحله لحائض ولا آية. If this hadith was authentic, I would not be talking about this matter. I don't make it halal for the ha'id, the women in menses, not even one ayah. So very weak hadith. You see how we work? Yes, there is a hadith very strong. If this hadith was authentic, khalas, we're done. But since this hadith is weak, we put it on the side. We're still standing with the first hukum, which is, what is the hukum for a woman to, when menses, is to read the Quran. Use the hukum. Halal? Permissible? Perfect. See how clear it is. Now, if you go to any book and you find pages and pages and pages going up and down, right and left, up and confusing you, then it's good. When an alim is dealing with opinions and dissecting them, that's perfection. He's going, narrowing it to the end. He's going to tell you, here it is. One hukum. Khalas. Once you watch the video one more time, it will be good. Yes, my brother. I don't want to make it long for you. Maybe this is the last question, inshallah.
Yeah.
On what this man had said, and say it was easy, but they were really lost in terms of what you suggest.
I'm not going to answer you, so you come next Friday, inshallah. Yeah, he is asking about the madhabs. Inshallah, next Friday, it will be about the madhabs. I don't want to give you a hint. Next Friday, we'll do the same thing. I give you a little bit about the madhabs, about the opinions. There is not 4 different opinions of madhabs. There is always 2 who end up with 1. So next Friday, inshallah, halaqa, we'll be talking about the madhabs, inshallah. I want you to come. Bring your jacket with you. Khalas. Maybe the last one and we close. Oh, wallahi, it was before you. But I'll make sure I take both of you.
Few scholars suggest that there need to be the pizza that, and they quote it from Surah Maida, that everything is halal. You don't have to question when you should not ask the person, you get Jews or Christians, we can eat it anywhere. There are very rare cases like that. So they quote from Surah Maida, everything is halal. Jews are, Christians are.
Do you know my PhD thesis was on this? Wallahi al-azim. القول الفصل فيما حرم من طعام أهل الكتاب وحل. The final say in whatever is halal and haram in the meat of the people of the book. That was my PhD. So do you want me to tell you now, answer you in 1 minute? He was talking about, for sisters, he was talking about halal and haram. There is one scholar said everything is halal as long as they are from the people of the book. I would not call that a scholar, number 1. I would call him somebody who have no fear from Allah. Has no fear from Allah. Is there a rule in saying everything is halal? Did he bring the proof? Surah Al-Ma'idah? Yeah, we'll read Surah Al-Ma'idah and we'll explain to him. See, this is what's happening in these days. No fear from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah Al-Ma'idah. Now, if he was a scholar, number 1, do you know the one who prepared the meat for HEB or Walmart? Do you know if he's from the people of the book? Do we know? How does he say it's all from the people of the book? So that shows you this guy doesn't fear Allah, actually. And if he's listening and he listens to it, well, I want him to fear Allah.
Yeah, this, أقول عن كتاب بس أنا استمعت إنه
the brother saying the way they do it is not halal. And we'll go into it. We'll give a lecture about it, inshallah. There are 2 things. I will finish this. I will give you 2 things to take with you. When it comes to the meat, Sharia is asking you to verify 2 things only. Only 2 things. One of them is the ahliya. Ahliya means qualification. And the qualification is Jew or Christian or Muslim. Include Muslims, ya akhi. Number 1, al-ahliya. Al-amr al-thani, al-tariqa. Second thing is al-tariqa, the way it's done. Allah said in Surah Al-Ma'idah, إِلَّا مَا ذَكَّيْتُمْ, except the one that you slaughter. So 2 things are required. Now I'm going to ask you, I make it, all my PhD, I make it to you for 2 minutes. If one of these 2 is not present, what do you do? Inshallah a'lam. We need a ruling, right? If the 2 are there, it's halal. Because Surah Al-Ma'idah, qualification mentioned Surah Al-Ma'idah, the way mentioned the Surah Al-Ma'idah. You can show me those two? Yes, it's halal. Those two are present, go. If one of them is not there, now we go to the book of Said in Bukhari and Muslim, book of Hantin. Hantin is the same thing. Adi ibn Hatim asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Again, this is in Bukhari and Muslim. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, إذا أرسلت كلبك المدرب سميت إذا سميت أو أرسلت كلبك المدرب ثم وجدت معه كلبا آخر فلا تأكل. When you have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said مكلبين, if you train your dog or whatever animal you use for hunting, what training means, إذا نهرته انتهر وإذا أمرته. When you, what do you mean training dog? When you tell them to stop, they will stop. When you tell them to go, they will go. And they're trained not to suffocate the rabbit or the bird. They will grab it by the wing or by the back. So these are trained dog, qualified. They meet what? Number one, qualification. Right? They meet the qualification because they are trained. We're missing the second part, which is, we said two requirements. One of them is what? Qualification. Number two, the way it's done. So now we got the qualification is a trained dog. ثم وجدت معه كلبا آخر. When you send your dog, you say Bismillah and send your dog and he caught the prey. Then he comes back and there is another dog with your dog, do not eat. Why? We don't know who caught it first. And if it's caught by the non-qualified, did Rasulullah say verify, check, examine, or he said, don't eat. Why? What is here missing, which we don't know, is the qualification of the second dog, right? So what is missing here? Qualification. Based on both of them, is the qualification is missing, then what do we do? What he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Don't eat. He said by word, فَلَا تَأْكُلْ. Don't eat. Now we go in the second case. وَإِذَا أَصَبْتَ بِرُمْحِكَ وَسَقَطَ فِي الْمَاءِ فَلَا تَأْكُلْ. But if you shoot with your arrow, let's say you shoot a deer or a rabbit or a bird, and it fell in the water, do not eat. What is hidden from us here? The qualification or the way? Qualification is arrow, or the way it died. Did it die by the arrow or did it die drowning? So we don't know. So if you don't know the way, what do you do? What he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? فَلَا تَأْكُلْ. By word he said, do not eat. So you have two requirements, qualification and the way it's done. If one of them is missing, what he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So brother, stop going to that. Last one, inshallah. Sallallahu alaihi
Aisha, you can do anything except well, I mean, females either side. Like, does that mean that she will not be carrying a hatchet down that?
No, this is another hukum. We'll talk about it. How she will do her hajj. She will finish until her menstruation is over, then she can do her tawaf al-wada'. Yeah, she has to stay there. Yeah. There's just, when it's over, then you meet all the requirements. And we'll cover it more when we talk about touching the Quran and yalla. Yalla. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك اللهم تقبل منا وتجاوز عنا اللهم فقهنا في ديننا اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا واجعله حجة لنا لا حجة علينا اللهم اجعل هذا التجمع تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان تقبل منا وتجاوز عنا وتب علينا يا أرحم الراحمين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين أقم الصلاة